Motion to adopt the agenda, please. Counselor Warwick, all in favor? Carried. Delegations, Mr. Rob Wellsman.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Mayor and Council. The reason why I'm here today is to present and take questions on our first quarter figures, as well as our policing report. So that's period between April 1st and June. It has been busy spring and summer for the Hanna detachments. We've been keeping very busy. I wanted to share with you some of the things that we've been working on over the early summer and spring. I just took a bit of time to write out some of the arrests that we had during the spring period. That is in Q1 here. For Q1, we housed 15 prisoners for the Hanna detachment and 2 for the Oyen detachment. The things that we're making arrests and housing people in custody on are outstanding warrants, public intoxication due to alcohol, public intoxication due to drugs, failure to comply with probation, outstanding warrants for existing charges, and those may be charges that are either from within Hanna or inside the area. Assaults, criminal flight from police, and theft, failure to comply with probation orders, impaired driving due to alcohol, and failure to attend court and breach of conditional sentencing orders. So we had 15 prisoners housed. We did have individuals who were also arrested but not held in custody because it was not necessary to hold them in custody. In those cases, they're issued terrorist documents of the court and release conditions.
So what would that entail?
So for individuals that aren't held,
Yeah.
so for example, I can give you like a hypothetical example, like a check fraud or something
Oh,
like
okay, that aren't a risk to the public.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So in the provincial policing reports, the 4th-page document, you'll see the list of community consultations that we did at the beginning of the year with Youngstown Council, special areas, Starlight Council. We also made a consultation with the mayor as well of Hanna. Also, it lists some of the priorities that we're doing for this year. Some other are the same as last year, but some are different. One that is different is the checking out of individuals who have court-imposed conditions. We conducted 37 checks on those individuals, and we didn't see that there was a decrease towards the end of the quarter because some of those individuals were coming off the requirements, but they just exceeded due to the period ending for them. We also did some traffic joint operations with special areas and the other sheriffs. And I don't have anything specific to touch on in terms of the statistics pages there, but I'm happy to take any questions we have on those. And lastly, with respect to our staffing levels, we have a recruit in October, which will increase our complement by 1. They'll be on a 6-month training period. They're up to an officer. We do have one other officer at the department who will be on modified duties. So our staffing levels will essentially remain unchanged for the next 6 months. So we'll still be working on getting additional officers, both from the depot, but we're also soliciting interest from officers who are experienced officers already. So any questions?
So could you remind us what your complement is?
So our our position complement that we have are 5 constables, 1 corporal, and 1 sergeant. And so, at present, we have 3 constables, a corporal, and myself as a sergeant. And we're also currently supplemented by reserve constable, works part-time at our detachment.
And that constable has restricted duties.
Yeah.
Volunteer.
The reservist is a paid officer with full capabilities as one of our regular constables. Reserve constables are essentially previously full-time officers who retired and then
Oh, okay,
they're hired back essentially.
okay.
So essentially they work part-time. But their duties are exactly the same. It's essentially just a different name.
So Sergeant Wells, with the 3 constables you mentioned, is one of those 3 unmodified? Or that would be,
Yes, so one of those constables will be going modified and then we'll be adding, they'll be going modified duties next month and then we'll be adding the recruiting.
and then you'll still be 1 shy?
So we'll technically be 2 constables died. And we're still working on that, filling on those 2 things.
And that's probably, I think my understanding is that's a challenge throughout our CP is
It is.
filling the vacant positions.
Yes, it is, and we bear in mind too that we added the corporal position last year, and one of our constables transitioned over to that position, so we by adding that extra position, that I guess makes it appear that we're lower than we previously were, but we obviously want to get back up to full strength. Work on proactive projects as well.
Rob, do each of the individuals then come to the same shifts? Or is it based on that of the bureau? Or do you really do shifts and or do they all do the same?
So all of the constables do both night shifts and day shifts. I do mostly day shifts because the expectation is that I'm there during office hours, but I will work night shifts as needed to cover any kind of vacancies, and then our reserve constable will work both as well.
So, what is your night shift? Is there somebody that is covering from the 1 until 7? 1 in the morning.
So Hanna detachments, like most small detachments, these do not have on-duty 24 coverage. So in order to do that, we would probably need to have more than 10 officers. That said, small detachments use an on-call model after hours. So there's always at least 2 officers always available to respond to calls. But there's not always proactive patrolling at all hours of the day. So we focus our on-duty patrol hours to times when there's the highest call volume, which is during the day and the evening. So in order to have a 24-hour policing model like a larger center, like Airdrie, something like that, you need a lot more officers.
Yeah, I think a lot of I've heard concerns about people wandering around during the and like riding the bikes around, I think it's something even the locational, but every once in a while there's on a high value, but they kind of surprise them and realize that there's a kind of stuff that probably in that time that may help some of these people, because I think there's a big concern for our residents that people coming into the property when they don't see and for stuff. And so you know, that is a big concern with that and with the amount of drugs that are around and homeless people, and I'm not intentionally being wrong for homeless people, but I think some people feel more comfortable wandering around at night. and just more opportunities for them. So that is a big concern, there's a concern with, people setting up, camps or confining, spots along the dam. And in my cities and stuff that, I think I couldn't figure out how to do it themselves, and like find themselves. And so, that was a bit of a concern, is there anything that you think you can do for that? And there's been, reports of people that are using, license, public license that I don't want. And, for remote areas for, the underground and whatever else. And so that is the thing, we're not used to that, how does it sound out in those that are not?
So just for council's info, I had asked Rob when he came to do the presentation, I knew there would be some questions and discussion about the particular issue you raised, Council Bowden. So certainly, I'm happy that Rob's here, and I'm happy that Dre's here. And I guess we can maybe morph and move into that conversation. As I mentioned to Dre this morning, I think the RCP and Lynx are the closest organizations we have to these vulnerable people. And so I think they might both have some thoughts and comments they'd like to share. But I get, as I've mentioned to people, there's no easy answer. It's a very complex situation, but certainly if we want to work into that situation, I'll let Rob and Dre provide some initial comments to the council board question.
I'm sorry if I'm jumping in.
No, I knew this was part of the plan discussion to have this discussion and have council ask any questions they have and just have a dialogue.
Yeah.
One of the things that we're on, with the hours issue, we do change up our after hours coverage on occasion, so that we do land what we did. So if we're not precise and known, we don't advertise our. But it is important for the public policy and every where this is not like there's sometimes I'll see things that post with the social media that never get reported to us. Things that are happening after hours that just don't get reported, and our officers will go to any call of suspicious activity, people in the backyard, that sort of thing. As long as we get a call, and part of the challenge with just doing proactive controls is that you could have one officer on duty at 1 morning, for example, but they get control in downtown, Craig Mile, Hanna, and the chances of them interdicting at the exact moment when someone is in a property possible, but it is also very rare. It does happen, it doesn't, but it is rare. So one of the things we try to focus on is educating the public if you see something at all, even if you're not quite sure if it's criminal, but are concerned, you can certainly call us, and we'll go and make an assessment, so that I think that's going to be the best bang for tax dollars, and then that way we can focus the three officer coverage for those periods of time where really to have them, and we have the most calls with the service.
In the past, Rob, we had a citizens on patrol group in town. Is that something that's, and I don't understand how it works or anything. Can you enlighten us as to how it would work if we were to reactivate it?
Sure. My understanding is Citizens on Patrol is something that existed before I was here.
Yeah.
I think it was sort of, was it the COVID issue?
No, I don't remember.
Pre-COVID.
It's quite a while ago, but it's, yeah.
Certainly, that's something that we could explore again. If there's the volunteer interest to do that. and people want to participate in a program like that, I'm more than happy to start something up like that.
I think it's hard to find volunteers, like any organization is going to be hard enough.
I think they go through their periods of ups and downs. So I think it gets kind of a kickoff and everybody's excited, they volunteers and they do that for a few years and then they start, oh, I'm busy at this time, I'm busy, and it kind of interest kind of wanes a bit and it almost takes another push to get some new people or people remotivated to be a part.
And for the most part, it's very boring, which is great.
And maybe something that we looked at seasonally as well.
Mhm.
Maybe for the June to September period, it's keyword, but it is so quiet that for December.
Oh, yeah.
So probably
Plus the longer daylight hours.
The issue related to homelessness and drug use, our role in that situation is to investigate, deal with any criminality or violation class. So if we, for example, get called to someone who's sleeping in a bank you will go there and identify who they are, determine if they have any court imposed conditions that require them to comply with court orders. If they're required to reside in a certain location and they're breaching that, then enforce that order. Or if there's signs of intoxication, and also deal with that or take with sleeping on private property like a bank or another business, you can bring them under the Trespass Act. In terms of public spaces like parks, we have to look to see what the bylaws are in place for the towns. So if the town of Hanna, for example, had a no entry to park after dark, then we could enforce something like that. But if they're not breaking the bylaw, or not breaking federal acts, then that's we also try to direct them to support, struggling with the drug addiction or help with some has a lot of great
Where is the closest facility for everybody that will be referred to?
It really is a matter of closest facility, it's a matter of vacancy. Majority of facilities that are individuals or connecting have to be put on a wait list. And then they have to check in daily by phone, which is great if you have a phone. So some individuals have used Link's office space as their check-in point, and then we will connect with the staff at the other end and say, you may not hear from them Saturday, Sunday, because our office is open. They will then go through a process of intake, and then after intake, the average wait, and this is very situational, can be from 2 weeks to 3 months. So its availability is one of the key gaps in our province right now. There is access to some virtual treatment programs as well. We've had a couple individuals have great success with that. We've also had some individuals that have not had success with it, coming in and sitting in front of a computer screen it just doesn't work for so many people, right? That there's a digital literacy and a time component that has to be between our hours. And so also with the recovery centers network, yeah, navigation center, excuse me, that was set up in Edmonton and they dismantled their encampment center there. There also is a model now that's been set up in Calgary and it effectively opened in July. And we had an individual from our community. We made the connection and we've had great success. So it's kind of a one door stop. It does not provide overnight accommodations, but they will try and support you to find somewhere. But it also has like an employment center and treatment opportunities and mental health supports. However, being homeless in a large urban center is definitely more scary than being homeless in Alberta. Safety reasons for the individuals. Some individuals that we have supported over the last couple of years, born and raised in our community, some new to our community. It really also goes in quite interesting cycles of the current number of individuals that we see. And definitely not everybody's connecting with us by their choice. I asked my team to do a snapshot of just individuals currently on our caseload that would be, truly homeless and are possibly high-risk drug users yesterday morning. 2 weeks ago, we had 5. Yesterday, we had 9. Right? So, a lifestyle of, at risk of homelessness and couch surfing. So, I know off the top of my head last week, 4 individuals that were residing in our community now are in Drumheller. Will they be back to Hanna in a couple of months? Maybe, maybe not. So it's really goes in cycles. We try our very, very best at Lynx to create a welcoming, safe environment for whoever walks through the door. We do not necessarily have all the resources at our fingertips, but we sure the hell and try to be the connector piece. Our Reaching Home grant, so through the federal government and the Rural Development Network is who is managing the dollars in Alberta. So there was a call for proposals and it was so oversubscribed, but we were fortunate to be one of the agencies approved. So it is a 2-year program. We asked for $60,000 a year. We got 30. So it does cover very part-time staff hours, as well as maybe some preventative, as well as immediate supports. So we have an application process and individuals can apply for support with utility arrears, rental arrears, a damage deposit, a first month rent, some household items if we're setting them up in a new rental accommodation and they don't have a mattress. So we're going to be out of money way before March 31st comes around. But in conversations with Rural Development Network, we're going to go ahead and spend it, and maybe there will be little trickles of money from other projects that aren't spending. And they'll look at it and say, yes, kind of area does need it. So we're very due diligent with our application process. And on our application process, we offer opportunity for those folks to select other services, resources they think they would find helpful for them. So I just brought some cards. So we haven't advertised it all over. Word of mouth, and that's our strongest advertised threat. So often we're making the connection to individuals and building that relationship through our career services department, a little bit through our community learning department, and of course our connecting community with our hot lunch program on Wednesdays. That has been an incredible vehicle to build trust with though many humans in our community, that then gives them the confidence to ask for something that they need, which is really cool.
And can I interject on that? That hot lunch is also available for people that want to go for a hot lunch and you can pay it.
Absolutely.
Free. Well,
There's no,
It can-
there's no screening or application
yeah,
at
but
the.
if you want to go and then you want to pay for it, you can, so that is acceptable. Not very often. And those that have, are being referred to other centers.
So transportation is always an issue. So we navigate that the best we can.
Are you looking for volunteers to do that, or?
Drive happiness, that is not an option, at this current time. To me, it isn't a fit. Yeah.
Maybe a bit of a.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just a question, Ray. I know you've mentioned you haven't promoted this or advertised this a great deal. Is this something that like I don't know what the requirements are, I guess, but if we have, and I'm looking at it selfishly from the town of Hannah's perspective, we have people who can't pay their.
So our staff has reached out to your front end staff.
Okay, maybe they're aware of that.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of it. I'm gonna say, is this something we can direct them to?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, the other question I have, and I know you mentioned it, and what you guys do is fantastic. You know, for a community our size to, you know, not have provincial dedicated supports for this. You guys have stepped in and filled a, unfortunately, a void that we had and a void that's getting busier. But
It isn't getting busier.
well, it seems, it just, the impression I have is it seems like it's getting busier, but.
And I think people, stories travel,
Yeah.
right? And a story from July 2023 that was circulating is current, because that's the first some people heard of it. Whereas we knew about it in July 3rd, 2023, right? So it's already a year past. So it seems like, yeah, all this is happening like right now, August 2024, when there was circumstances, but they've been through the last 24 months.
So do you think, and this is probably a question you maybe don't have the answer to, but I know you mentioned that people have to want to get help. So I believe that working with you guys, the people who do want help, we can help address. It may take time, and hopefully they can be patient with that time frame, and community can be patient with that time frame. But would you have any idea what percentage of people that might be like out there that are in that situation that are not coming forward?
And this
It's
is,
just,
this
you may
is
not have
my
the answer,
lived
yeah.
experience of it, and I definitely have some biases now because I really care for
Yeah.
a lot of those
Yeah.
individuals that have made horrible life decisions and bad choices, and not one of the individuals that I had the opportunity to get to know, and some I don't know very well at all. Not one of them woke up and said that they were going to be a drug addict. So many of the addictions comes from a trauma, whether it's physical, mental, the mental health, gaps also are just so vast. So absolutely vast.
The interesting thing, Doreen, we've helped a little bit. The guys that I've actually had do the driving, their initial perception is always been kind of a ooh.
Mhm.
And once they've made that trip with the fella and talked to him for 2.5 hours, depending upon where we've taken them to, they come back and they have a totally different outlook upon the situation. The perceived situation versus the real situation. And I've had 3 different guys drive for me and help your group out. And all 3 of them have come back and said, you know, that guy just needs a break. Or, you know, he's made some poor decisions, but yeah.
Well, they get to spend a short time and there's a snapshot of that human,
Yeah,
not the drug addiction,
No, and-
not the
yeah.
mental health issues. It's a human that was in a vehicle and shared 3 hours of time with.
yeah, and like I said, all 3 guys that have drive have come back with very different outlooks as far as the problem. And so it's kind of interesting to hear the guys when they come back. And you know, I ask them, I said, how's the trip going? And they basically spill their beans and go, you know, this guy just had a bad run of luck and just made some poor decisions, but it's not that ooh anymore. He's a human being that just made some bad choices. So
And we are so grateful.
oh,
And
it's
your drivers that have, you know, chose to take the risk to something's like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this, or I don't know, you know, they also share the opportunity that they've had a real judgment switch, like it's a change of thinking.
oh yeah,
which
no, for
is
sure,
Pretty cool.
pretty overwhelming.
How can we do that on a greater scale within the community? Because there appears to me to be quite a bit of that. Warranted or not, I don't know.
And some of it is awareness and education. And opportunity to see those individuals as humans in our community. So I'm not condoning any illegal behaviors or any unhealthy behaviors. But it's an opportunity. We just keep trying our best to share the awareness and education piece and the empathy piece. I also don't believe that our community everybody has to be sympathetic, but I think there needs to be a lens of empathy.
I think it's fear.
100%.
And I'm sure the RCMP are dealing with that already, but there's a fear and having to deal with more and more mental health issues and not counseling, but just.
Is it more and
Well,
more?
and it's safety. I mean, we're finding
No,
that
I-
comes from fear. Individuals are afraid.
And then, you know, you see that on the street, but that causes, you know, children or elderly or anyone for that matter.
And awareness and education is, I think, one of the best tools to help people cope with the fears. And you don't know what you don't know. You absolutely don't. You can't.
And we've had good integration as far as some programming the town does. The Raise Crew, of course, has built that trust and those relationships with people who come regularly for hot lunch. So we'll use that as an opportunity of, if we're doing registration fair, if we're doing skate with Santa, if we're doing just other things in the community that we have going on, you know, like our Ford Bamford concert, we had things like that, of making sure we bring those promotional materials to links and they make them available during those timeframes to make sure that that population that maybe we're not reaching in our traditional Facebook post or our mail flyers or things like that, those folks are getting connection from people they trust to say, hey, you should go to that and sign your kids up. Hey, did you know that we have kids sport? You know, things like that, that are supporting those families in a more broad sense. They've kind of got that connection. So we borrow their credibility sometimes and piggyback on that to make sure the information of what we're doing at the town level gets to some of the population that needs that to be able to integrate and be part of our community, because I think that takes a lot of that stigma out.
It takes a lot of the stigma out, but on the individual side, that is
a vulnerable person, and it could be a 44-year-old male, it could be a single mom with 3 kids. Some of the barriers for attending isn't what we initially think it is. Well, it's the cost, you know, it's getting there. It's because when they attend, they feel they will be judged. And that sense of belonging is in our community isn't there for them. And that also then feeds the whole cycle of the isolation. And when in relation to addictions, you know, those substance to try and fill that void. I am not clinically trained. We're learning lots as we go. But that is one of the pieces that small rural communities are missing. It is professionals with the credentials that are clinically trained, that can be available in a situation, and it could be a crisis or non-crisis situation, but not 5 months down the road. I mean, like 7 minutes is what I'm hopeful for. So we try our best to be an application support to individuals. I shared with Kim and Vern earlier. I'm not sure who else was in the room. I have a colleague that has a brilliant statement, and we all have said, you know, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And she says, but can we support them to make them thirsty? I'm like, wow, maybe we can, right?
So Dre, my question would be, from your perspective, and I'll ask this of Rob as well, is there something the town can do? Do you have any ideas, comments on it, something the town could do to help assist in the process?
Referrals that if there is an individual that there's interaction, because not everybody in our community knows about links either.
Yeah.
Very few, and we tend, like, our strongest marketing is word of mouth. And, you know, my friend told me to come here, or Sally said, or she saw on Facebook, you know, so referrals, communication. We also don't know what we don't know. We have, you know, a great working relationship with all of your departments, but sometimes a quick phone call or an email could support somebody within minutes. The immediate services we don't have. Walking alongside somebody as they potentially do a really rough journey is some of the role we can play until we can connect them to, and most times it's out of town services, which also is really hard for some individuals to leave the support they have. If they have some supports here at home, leave those.
Is there any, and I'm trying to put myself in the frontline staff shoes that we have that may get called because there's someone who's locked themselves in the bathroom for half an hour or an hour. Generally, their process is basically trying to get them out and get them going, but not necessarily to have a dialogue with them to, you know, how can we help you? It's like, you need to get out of here, go. Is there something out there education wise that we could have some sort of discussion with our front line to maybe they could start to say, hey, did you know about this? Can you could go see links, they might be able to help you. Because they don't have any education or experience in that. It's just simply, you need to get out of the bathroom, you need to go get out of here, or you need to get out of the park, go move along. But they're not creating any dialogue with them, say, how can we help you? And partly I think it is still the unknown, and there's definitely fear in there because they haven't necessarily had experience dealing with people like that. And the RCMP have been very good, and they said, if you have any issues, don't hesitate to call anytime. Like, and I'm talking our adult frontline, not necessarily our kids at the pool or that, but just if there's something that might be able
Let's
to open
create
their
it.
eyes a
Yeah.
little bit too, so.
Absolutely, let's create it.
One of the things that, you know, we talked about previously, was, our role is to respond to things like that. So if you have a staff member who receives a report, a community member that a washroom's been occupied for too long, they can call us and we will go, we'll determine who the individual is, because technically occupying a washroom for hours on end is mischief. To no offense to preclude others from using the property. So we can go there and have a discussion with them, and it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to arrest them, but we have the experience to be able to point those folks in the direction of things that Mike's can provide. And if those individuals are intoxicated or if they have any standing warrants or things like that, then we can deal with all of the court related issues as well. And sometimes the best opportunity to help direct these folks to those resources is once they've been in our custody for a little bit of time, and they haven't used any intoxicants for a 12-hour period, it becomes easier to communicate and, you know, maybe suggest to them that maybe they should look at supports and resources.
There's a real fine line when you're dope sick. I don't ever want to do this again, or if I don't do it, I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
Like that. And I haven't had the life experience, thank you, to know what that feels like myself. But I have experience of witnessing it a couple times. It is awful. And often we will meet those individuals after they've just been let out of jail.
Fortunately, we're co-located.
Yeah.
Makes it easy walking down the hall.
Yes.
There have been a number of times where. The other thing as well is that. So that's probably. I guess it's- so that- that's a-
And so many of the facilities, they have to be detoxed for a minimum of 5 days before they are accepted to treatment centers. And that is a rough period of time. I would like to, and it's on my list again this year, is to have further conversations with AHS. We had huge success individual, but it was admitted to the hospital for a health issue, but then had the opportunity to do his detox. And nevertheless left our custody in travel, so people were to rehab. Otherwise, they have to do another detox in a different facility, and there's a waiting list for it. And some of them are not safe as well. There's the real easy access to very high risk drugs right there. So it's yeah, I wish we, pardon me?
Is that called prison?
No. I'm not gonna tell you where it's called.
I'm not. No, that was just, no.
I'm concerned with, we have individuals in our community, this last weekend, we had a golf tournament on. And in and off the golf tournament, we have people come up to take balls and walk away and back into the team. And so if these people are not reported, and we can identify that, you know, or certain locations, how do we begin to address those? Can we, just, you know, I mean, that's a whole other thing. I mean, when they're reported in the banks or in the washers and stuff, I mean, you guys come, you do your process, but I'm wondering about, you know, what happens with these individuals. I know I've been hearing time and time again, there's ones that are living up in North End telling the truth. And I mean, you don't have to identify with them, type of deal with them, I don't know if it's reported, but can you just go out there and try to, you know,
give them some information, support them. And I'm also concerned, like, we're coming into a time of the year where the weather is not conducive to just living in the city or anywhere else out in the, outside world. So I don't know, like, how do we begin to address those particular issues?
Yeah, I mean, it really starts with a phone call, so if you have someone in the golf course stealing golf balls, so get a call about that, we will go try and make it at it as well, and also mischief. So then it's a football. Criminal charge them if it's appropriate. Yeah, it's- Oh, I think my best simplest advice to folks is if you see something concerning or causing an issue, just call us. And it's very easy for us to start making an evaluation and go out there. Because if you don't get the call, then it's very hard for us to.
So if you see an individual in the park under a tree.
Yeah.
Would you address that situation? I guess is my question. Or
So-
would you wait upon a call from a citizen?
So that's a good question. If we proactively see someone like sleeping in one of the parks, we will go up and speak with them. And I'll try to determine what their name is. An individual's not obligated to speak with me if they're not breaking the law. So if there's no like bylaw offense, for example, for sleeping in a park, then they could just walk away from the officials that. Unless I know that they're committing a criminal offense, then I can hold them. And once I confirm their identity, they have warrants like that, and I can decide whether or not they charge whatever the offense is that I'm seeing. So I think that goes back to what I was saying earlier. If the town is seeing a particular behavior that they don't want to have occur, like sleeping in a park after dark or on private property by the town, then they may have to consider whether it's appropriate to have a bylaw for that sort of littering park. That is offense, provincial offense. So then, that's probably my best advice in that situation.
I think there's a lot of people that are just, well, that's not what, calling or something on that or whatever, but then it's a way to evaluate the situation and see if there is something else going on. So maybe that a bit more responsibility on the residents, that they have something that is very well enough to follow. And, do you go into the schools and when you go into the schools to share any education on homelessness and that sort of thing, or is that not really appropriate for, say, high school?
It would be on an invite basis, Sandra. That wouldn't be something probably that I would approach each school on. But if it was a request, certainly we could follow up on it.
No, certainly we are going to the school and discussing and alcohol use we have, since I've been here, that's been one of our priorities.
What is council's initial thought? Would our community be in a position to think about offering an overnight shelter?
Are you thinking about in the hospital or?
Well, that would be an AHS conversation.
I think, Dre, I don't believe we've had that conversation. I think from my perspective, what would need to be, I guess, determined is, and I hate to use the term funding, but what, if you had the ability and the resources to draft a plan to come back and say, yes, this is what an overnight shelter could look like in Hanna, you know, the town may have to purchase a property that would accommodate that. But then you've got your operational costs, your staffing costs, your stuff. Yeah, I think if somebody could put the bones together a plan, I think that would be something that then could be brought forward to council to say, would you have any interest in this? Would you consider funding this? Maybe find some other partners, but I think having the picture, I think there probably would be interest, but I think a lot of it would come down to the financial resources and the cost. And I'm just speaking, I don't know if council has any different opinion.
Like you've identified, we don't have all the resources here and the supports in the community. So I understand, helping, but then what do we do with all of that? What do we do with the individuals? How do we support them?
I don't think we do anything with those individuals. I think we provide the opportunity that they can have desire to support. And I think we already are starting somewhere, because there's good things happening in our community, with organizations, with private citizens. But if somebody's basic needs aren't met at all, they have no capacity to move forward with seeking other supports. You know, homelessness, food insecurity, our mental health and addiction is like this.
I won't disagree with you. That's quite frankly why I have a conversation with the bathrooms. Because these people need a place, a facility to use, so they're not out, you know, wherever going to the bathroom, and they need water. You know, so those are just some of the things that, unfortunately, that. Yeah,
The Reaching Home program, when we first looked at it, early. Was it in last year? Doesn't matter. Last year. There is two parts. There actually is a capital program part that you can propose for funding, which I thought that's where we were gonna go. However, you need to have a 5-year funding sustainable plan to keep it going after the grant. And like, well, we don't have that, and we don't have enough time to get that organized. But there is some really interesting housing shelter solutions that rural communities are using. They're like shelter pods, and it's, you know, they're not staffed 24 hours. It's like a doorbell. You get a code and you stay the night in the little pod with a bed and a sink and a toilet. And then you have to be out by 9:30 the next morning. So there are different options, but I was curious to see interest, because we do have a few of those ideas, waiting for the opportunity to move forward on them. And we definitely would be game to put something together to bring back to council.
I have a question for you. If there was a facility that was set up within the area, would the RCMP feel that more, you would need more manpower? Like, would you think it would draw?
Would attract people to come here?
Yeah, not attract, but you know, once there, if we have a facility that people are able to utilize, and they probably are going to pay. Look what you're talking about, just within our own community, not beyond.
Just the situation that we sometimes find ourselves in, it's 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon in December.
Yeah.
And someone's standing either in our office here or in their office there and has nowhere to sleep tonight. And we're on the phone having a conversation about, well, do we think we got transportation? Is there a bed in Red Deer? Are we too late to get them there in time to get them in tonight? What is the solution for this person until Monday morning? Is, I think, kind of the gap you're looking to fill.
Yeah. Well, this is the first I've heard of this. So I think this has to, maybe should come to council of concern and get a discussion and maybe some recommendations. Because
I've never even heard of this.
But where does this, in your reaching home, the temporary overnight accommodation fit into that scenario?
So we would pay for a hotel room.
Okay, so
And
the solution is already, that's the solution?
that's the solution if it's the right individual that be comfortable with paying for a hotel room for them.
Well, that would be the other thing, is whether the hotel manager would be willing to accept somebody that might be a high risk for the rest of their occupants.
It's
And,
absolutely
reasons and such.
Situation.
I know it.
And in addition to the Reaching Home Dollars, the Ministerial Association has done this as well in the
They
past.
have,
Same thing, trying to be cognizant of who it's the right fit for and doing that in some situations, but it doesn't catch all of the situations.
And they're restricted in funding as well, too.
And some individuals choose not to accept those supports.
Councilor Murphy has a question.
Not all homeless or risk of homeless people are drug addicts,
100%.
alcoholics. I was one. When my place burned to the ground, I had nowhere to go.
Yes.
So the problem with many rural communities is not in my backyard. You see it all over Facebook where they're actually making fun of the homeless people. But they're continuing to come here because there's a drug source here. There are several, and not all the drugs they're taking are what they think they're taking. And we have a death issue and people are overdosing. They're not overdosing because they changed their dose.
It's drug poisoning.
It's drug poisoning, absolutely. And the people who are providing this need to be criminally held responsible for all these deaths. And they're not. And they should be. I know it's a difficult thing to navigate, but we need to find the sources. We know who they are, and they continue to do it. And we know where the drug houses are, and they continue to supply. And if that gets whittled down, hopefully we can catch the person before they're dope sick to get them some help, because it is so terrifying to be that they become desperate, then they steal because they need the money, so they're not sick anymore. So it's that cycle that continues, and then they're vilified and absolutely dehumanized on social media. They're dehumanized as people. I went to the point of financially sacrificing so that my family member with mental illness, completely sober, but mental illness, is out of this community and safe, because he would have been homeless. And you can't wait 3 months for help when you're October, November. So I did that. And I had to, because the government just wasn't there for us. So certainly there's going to be a conversation at our Alberta Municipal Conference about getting this fixed. But in the meantime, can you comment a little bit about what are we doing to stop the supplies coming into him?
So we have ongoing investigations. Obviously, I can't speak to the progress
Oh,
of them.
absolutely, yeah.
But drug trafficking is at the forefront of it. I don't know if you mentioned earlier, like people come to Hanna for the drugs, but unfortunately, there's sources of drugs, it seems, in every community, and it's no exception. Arresting one drug trafficker is certainly a huge step, but there's different layers that have to be done. We can arrest people at the street level, the distribution level, and also the importation as well. And that happens at higher levels in investigation than just here in Hanna. But it is something I do want you to know that we are working on. It's not something that we're turning a blind eye to or
I'm not sure about this part of the law. Has a law been put in place to make this trafficker, even at the local level, accountable for someone's poisoning? If they are supplying what they think is cocaine, for example, and it turns out to be fentanyl, increases their addiction rate off the charts. And they went from a casual user to every day because of the fentanyl. and then they end up with no heartbeat.
From memory, I know that the courts have looked at the types of drugs that are being distributed as a sentencing factor when they're sentencing drug traffickers. So if someone's trafficking fentanyl, then the courts may treat that more harshly. But yeah, I think that's all I can really say about that, is that that's ultimately up to the government to decide how they want to proceed with that.
I think that's half the problem with the judicial system, because, you hear this catch and release situation all the time, and I imagine that's frustrating as could be for the people that go to the trouble of talking them down and catching them and sending them away, and then the next day they see them back on the street again. And so that's, a challenge as well, but you would think, if they know that they're selling them poison, not considered attempted murder. Like, you would think that you can't control a person on how much they're gonna use, but just the fact that it kills people is, how is that any different than poisoning somebody? And, giving them arsenic or something, and, I think some stories about that who are addicted to drugs, that they're selling it for things. And
I think that this is definitely something that when you have the conversation at the municipality meeting, Mr. Neal asked that I put forward a request for be able to speak to sir. That is a very good conversation to have at the highest levels. How they
yeah, because I imagine it'll be a hot topic, and every community, as you mentioned, is dealing with the same thing. And it's growing beyond, beyond people.
I don't know the latest numbers, but I think fentanyl related deaths are probably higher than they've ever been. So it's growing.
And thank you. Everybody is living in frustration to get out of our ecosystem.
And I absolutely want to clarify and just tag on to what you use an example, Sandra. Folks that are referred to links specifically for the Reaching Home program, there does not have to be any correlation to mental health, drug addictions. We have seniors, we have young moms that we've just been able to support through the program that have just got so far behind on their utilities that they're cut off. Winter's right around the corner, so helping them get a lot of that cleared up, so they're going to have their utilities hooked back up before winter. So
No judgment, right? It's wonderful.
Some programming for seniors as well, of like you need your hot water tank replaced and stuff, that Duray's office will help people fill in the forms and the paperwork for that to get the government funding for things like that. That again, just that unexpected expense thing on someone for a fixed income. They don't have the funds to fix that, so that we refer folks there for those sorts of things too.
Hardest call to make is, I think I need help.
100%.
Terrifying, and people suffer in silence. So if you know of somebody, really work on encouraging them, because they don't want to do it, because all they see in social media is they're losers, they're lazy. I bet you they do drugs, or they smoke cigarettes. We should cut them off welfare. I see this all the time. What is wrong with you? Anyways. My 2 cents. Yeah. Thank you for your service. Thank you.
I think the biggest thing for us as a council is if we know of someone dealing drugs, that's not our job as council to deal with. That's an RCMP issue. So we
Yep.
need to forward that to the RCMP. If we see someone that is homeless is doing something wrong, that is again not our duty as council. That is part of the RCMP. So we need to push that to the direction that it needs to go to. The catch and release, I'm on a Facebook page, Lakeland Crime, I believe it's called. And there's, numerous daily. And it's most of, well, just about everyone you see on there is breach of condition.
Hmm.
And it's super frustrating for the RCMP, but ultimately. All they can do is keep trying, and eventually they get enough breach conditions that they actually will do something with it, so. I think that's based. The other thing that I've noticed, and this may be just a personal observation, is our homeless and people in need in town. For the most part, the crimes that they're committing are crimes of opportunity. There's very little massive amounts, like when they were using our washroom facilities, for example. They're not thrashing them, they're not busting them up, they're using them and moving on, or using it as a residence. And that's just an observation I've made, that we're not seeing, a car theft or a massive break and enter into a business. It's a garage that's not locked, or a vehicle that's left open, or a bicycle that's stolen sitting on the front driveway. I've driven around town a little bit, just looking, and there's bicycles sitting everywhere. Everyone's, my son, for God's sake, has a bike, 2 or 3 bikes sitting in the front yard. But that to me seems to be the type of crime that these individuals are committing. Like, they're not hardcore criminals, like it's a crime of opportunity. They're desperate. Yeah, so. Any other questions for Rob? And like I said, let's help the taxmen do their job as much as we can, so.
I would add too that if you feel like you have information about any sort of drug trafficking, then feel free to share it with us. If you're speaking with people that you think might have information, there's confidential avenues that we can look at as well. Because it goes back to saying, if you see something, say something, and that way we can make the community better.
Perfect.
When we have concerns, we don't hesitate for a second to make the call to the detachment. Sometimes I'm thinking there's, oh gosh, what are they coming here now about? But we really appreciate the working relationship with the detachment.
And likewise. Thank you very much.
Okay. Motion, council thanks Sergeant Wellsman for the presentation for the 2024 first quarter. Councilor Murphy, all in favor? Carried. Public transportation, Dre.
Woo, woo, this is exciting. It's been long. It's been a long time coming. So it was absolute pleasure earlier this year to write a joint letter with Town of Hanna Community Services FCSS Department and the PCN to
Just maybe.
help the.
Primary care
Oh,
network.
sorry, acronyms. I'm sorry. Primary Care Network. To Healthy Aging Alberta Phase 2 Transportation. And we made it past the step of the intent letter and submitted a full application. And we have been approved in our community for a 20-month project. And with our project, we have 2 streams. So we're really focusing on ramping up the great work that Michelle has started in the community with Drive Happiness Project. So with this grant, it gives us opportunity to hire a part-time staff. So there's actually someone that it's going to be their job, not Michelle trying to do it off the corner of her desk. So stream 1, really ramp up the awareness of Drive Happiness and all that program has to offer by recruiting volunteer drivers, by helping seniors fill out the application to become a rider, all that process.
Drive your subsidy.
Yes, absolutely. And second stream is we're building a local loop bus shuttle service. So we are very excited as of Monday, we have a 6-month contract signed with a service provider in our community. And the local loop is going to run on Wednesdays. And it is going to run from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. We've driven our draft routes. We've made some changes. We have about 16 stops planned for that route. We have ordered temporary signage for our bus stops because we're not sure that's where the stop is going to stay. So we've ordered those locally and we should have them ready. We're going to do our voyage on September 18th. And we're going to have a launch party October 2nd. So stay tuned. We'll be sending invites to everyone. So the local loop is a hop on, hop off. So you pay $5. It is $5 to ride the local loop. And you can get on and off at all the stops, at none of the stops, one of the stops throughout the Wednesday. We've strategically placed the stops to cover most of our community. Goodness sakes, we can't stop everywhere. But if we get that interaction from an individual that says, well, you know, I just live 3 blocks that way, then this perfect opportunity to have a drive happiness conversation, because that is a door-to-door driving program. There will be subsidy. So if we have individuals that, you know, the $5 is their barrier, we do have specific subsidy line in the budget. What else?
Yeah, Drive Happiness is on board to partner with both pieces of this. So on the local loop side, they're going to help Duray's part-time staff there have access to their whole database. And so we're going to track those riders. We're going to track the rides provided, help us with grant reporting, but also with the decision after the grant period of what was usage like. So some of that statistic keeping. So yeah, they've been really great to work with as a partner. They're really excited to do. Rural expansion's been a big target for them as well. And so having someone that can be boots on the ground, that we had a position that they could kind of stretch to with this, was part of what they were excited to be a partner
And having
with.
access to their database on our end, and for them to be able to put in different components that we need for reporting, so we're not keeping data here and information here and having a spreadsheet, like, so they're just providing that as an opportunity to support the project. So we're quite excited that we will have some pretty interesting data at the end of this pilot project to say, you know, this went really, really well. These are the stats. This is what we could do different. And this is what it costs. So if we're looking at, you know, a continuation of the program, when we're talking to funders, when we're talking to municipality, when we're talking to citizens, we'll know what it costs.
And we made a choice, I guess, with that in the funding and looking at sustainability of not making a purchase of a vehicle. Lots of folks that get this grant, you purchase the vehicle, then it's something you have to maintain, insurance, you know, all of those things. So our viewpoint was looking at the Drive Happiness model of those volunteers are driving their own vehicles that they own as part of that program. And then with the local loop piece, contracting a service provider that provides the vehicle at that flat cost. So that if we decide we need to have more days that the loop runs, less days that the loop runs, change things up, we're not stuck with that asset that we bought that's depreciating over time. So that was kind of the strategy.
So I have a question. I'm just curious, like, of course, probably the medical clinic and the hospital are going to be a part of that. So those would be the days probably that it's busier. And we,
So I gave them a heads up.
yeah, yeah, I'm sure you did.
Kim with
but,
primary care
yeah.
at the clinic has been part of this from, she was actually the one that was bringing the first
Yeah.
piece of the application, the letter of intent. So we've got a good connection there.
So right now our temporary signs will be like a sandwich board style. And we're at the key spots, so it doesn't take an hour each Wednesday for my staff to go and put them out. I'm very hopeful that in those key spots. Like I've talked to staff at the medical clinic that always works Wednesdays. She goes, bring me a sign, I'll make sure it's out in the morning. So it's bringing in all those community assets as well.
And so, yeah, I guess from a town perspective, when we wrote the grant application, obviously some of my time going into some of the coordinating and getting things ready, and then looking at there may be a gifting kind to ask for some labor and equipment once we get to the permanent signage phase of this. So once they've kind of done the route and decided something we wanted to continue with, there's dollars for the purchase of the signs, the benches, those sorts of things if they need to be added in places where we don't have them currently, but there may be that component where, you know, our parks crew or public works guys might go out and do some of that work
An
to help
afternoon.
install things was one of the kind of components we put in that we would be on board to help with, just.
Ray, just, sorry, just maybe mention the time frame. That's a pilot project.
It's pilot project, so official start August of 2024. And we have 20 months, so March of 2026.
So Jerry, I'm just gonna throw some flying ointment in the the flyer. So I've got an appointment at the clinic
Yeah.
at 2:30.
Yeah.
As we all know, those appointments may not be at 2:30. It may be 3:30 by the time you get into the doctor. So
Right,
what would happen in that scenario?
so we're going to have a bus concierge. So we're gonna have link staff on the bus that would be mindful that, you know.
Yeah, I just don't want to see somebody left. in the
Susie
clinic.
got off the bus at the clinic and we were gonna pick her up on the last loop and she's still
In the clinic.
in the clinic. Mindful of that. And also we have a very observant, connected service provider with Fred's shuttle service that we would not leave somebody
No, I
behind.
Yeah,
But it would also be perfect that would be a drive happiness ride. So great opportunity to recruit lots more drivers, but some of the putting in to book your ride is a little intimidating. So if they know Sherry is the person at Lynx that will sit down and do it with them, or they can just call Sherry, not having to email Drive Happiness and Red Deer. I think we'll get some of those barriers out of the way, Danny.
yeah, no, it's just something that popped into my head because I know I've had an appointment at 2:30. And something pops up at the hospital and you don't get in till 3:30 and my ride isn't here anymore.
And we're not going to have 500 riders.
No.
That we're gonna try and keep track of
Yeah.
every Wednesday.
Yeah.
Reporting wise, and the focus of this grant is seniors, and seniors in their eyes is 55 plus. And yeah. Woohoo! And,
Yeah, I got my letter in the mail, just leave me alone.
and individuals with mobility issues. We've made the choice that we're not going to say, well, can I see your birth certificate? How old are you? Right? We're not going there. And we're also, if it is someone that we obviously know is not a senior, they can put their $5 in and we will keep the data for ourselves as organization, but we don't need to report on it. It would be a user pay.
The other piece that we've worked with Drive Happiness on as part of this expansion is some barriers to getting drivers. So, you know, we looked at, okay, what kind of rides are we struggling to have picked up? The out of town stuff tends to be a harder one for us to get filled currently. So we're gonna look to recruit drivers in that, but they've also kind of connected us within their network that, they have a very strong contingent of Drive Happiness in Airdrie. So they have a big community there, and that Airdrie group, because there's not a hospital in Airdrie, the majority of the rides they do are driving people from Airdrie into a Calgary hospital for appointments. They do tons of those. And so looking at some of the feedback from some of our volunteers was, I would drive down the highway, but I'm really just not comfortable in downtown Calgary traffic. I don't know the parking. I'm a little nervous about the parkade and the one-ways and, those sorts of things. And so their team is really eager with us to do the partnership of, would someone from here drive, say, to Cross Iron Mills, transfer the rider to an Airdrie driver who would run in and do the city chaos. You do what you gotta do in the area if you're gonna go watch a movie or do something to kill the time while you're there. Or visit family or friends or whatever you've got going on, and someone will bring them back out to kind of take that barrier piece where we're seeing some of our young seniors that want to be drivers aren't comfortable with that style of driving, so we're working on some of those pieces too, where we're gonna make those connects through Sherry at Lynx and through Liza's team at Drive Happiness of, can we work smarter to make that leapfrog happen and get people
Yeah,
to
to be
where
like
they
a
need to go.
Newton's cradle, right? Yeah.
I think our, Council Crowe had a comment.
Well, and this is gonna grow, I'm sure, I'm so excited to be part of it too, and I think we can make it very successful.
It's all week, just wait, it'll be all week.
Yes.
Now, it's $5 per trip.
No, it's $5 for
Per
the
day.
day.
They get on and off that Wednesday as many times as you want once you're.
Yeah.
And you're not gonna restrict. You're not gonna restrict
Age.
age or
No.
any income or
We're not.
anything, so
I know.
I could. My child could theoretically get on to take the bus, whether it's a snowy day or a beautiful day, doesn't matter. To the school, then to dance class, or I guess 11 to 3, that wouldn't necessarily
No.
apply, would it?
Our
Okay,
kids
gotcha.
probably would only use it, we see them using it in summertime when they're not school.
Or some little ones with mom
yes.
going to the grocery store if they're not
Yes.
school aged yet.
So 12 and under, there will not, it'll be free.
Okay,
The
that's-
ride will be free 12 and under.
If accompanied or,
They have to
So,
be accompanied.
yes, so, we're kind of talking babysitter age. So if you're 12 years old, you can babysit. And so, say I'm babysitting and I want to take these two little munchkins to the
To the
pool
library.
or whatever, they can jump on. The 12-year-old would have to pay the $5. But under 12 wouldn't. But a 5-year-old will not be permitted to get on without a caregiver.
I know Olds is doing a similar program to this and they run. Wednesday or Thursday, we were there one day and I seen the bus, so I got contact a couple of counselors there and it's been a success for them. Same thing, funding is running out, they're scrambling, trying to figure out what to do with it, but. Yeah, it's a great starting point anyway.
The party bus.
Oh. Party bus.
Wait till you see the ads we have going on.
And that's the other thing that. We tend to do on that. I guess board basically of what the bus could look like. And I've got, I think there's 21 sponsors. Of local businesses. And. If we get that involved. Next year when we're other funds, maybe they will all deal together and support something,
I think it has to be a community project,
Yeah,
100%.
It's great, I mean,
Is that accessible, that vehicle?
It is not wheelchair accessible, so we chatted with Fred about. And we've also chatted with Healthy Aging Alberta that we don't know. So, we do have the ability, if we needed, wheelchair accessible bus as part of it, that in the, interim, we definitely could make arrangement to use the town van and follow behind, the party bus. And Fred has also already talked about potential modifications if it's needed.
Okay.
the person that we bought our bus from, out of Edmonton, he places them with a handicap bus. So in 2 years, we'll have one for sure, that would be.
Wheelchair accessible. So we've been tossing around some of the logistics and my goodness, they're not worked out yet. We thought originally we would do like a punch card. So, if I wanted to buy my auntie a punch card and it had 20 days on it, but then we thought, we got to initial it for the day and said, why don't we do coins? Why don't we talk to some of the people we know that have 3D printers
Do tokens.
and make tokens? And so when you get on the bus, You know, you put your token in the bucket like you would on a city bus back in the day when you put your money in. You get a stamp for that day and you get on it. Then there's also another double check that we know how many people had their token in on that day.
Let's check with Kevin at Bowerstone. He has a 3D, he has three 3D printers.
Okay.
So where can
Definitely.
you buy it?
So you will make up a few spots available, I think, like the town of Hanna office and Michelle probably hasn't had the opportunity to talk to the girls yet. We thought town of Hanna, Links, and even possibly Kim at the clinic.
What about the library?
Another great suggestion.
There's spots that people, you know, are gonna come to that have the ability to take those payments and then we'll figure out the track.
I just don't want to get it too crazy to then try to manage who has the money and those
Yeah.
kinds of pieces. And also for our reporting, because this is a pilot and we want to track the demographics. And if it was subsidized or not subsidized, if we have a few locations that can also get that information from somebody that's buying the tokens will be useful.
Now, the token, my brain's going, wouldn't work if they can use it all day. Once they put the token
They're
in.
getting a stamp,
Oh, you get a stamp. Okay,
just like when you go to a cabaret.
beautiful.
Yeah.
I do think that probably between the driver and your concierge, they're gonna know that
Your regular-
Wednesday, who their riders were, and it's not gonna be somebody that's not gonna be able to handle it.
Right.
Yeah, but Connie brought up the idea of a token versus the punch card and said, yeah, like, let's make it as simple as we possibly can.
And reusable, you just take
Right,
them out.
wash them, yeah.
Oh, it's wonderful.
So again, just reiterate the dates you're planning to start, right?
So we're very hopeful to start September 18th as our first Wednesday. A launch party, October 2nd. And the local loop will be free, but there will be no fee to ride the bus that day. So we hope a lot of people that are invited to the launch party for the, information sharing piece and celebration piece will also, do one loop on it, just to experience it. And then like the actual program won't wrap up until March of 2026.
This is what the bus looks like. With all the ads on it. Isn't that cool?
I don't see
Yeah.
the town.
Hmm?
I don't see the town's logo. on
So
there.
will it start
It's
on
in
the
the-
other side? Will it
No.
start at the Prudential building?
That's the bright
No, it's gonna
gray
start on
colors,
the
I'll make
right.
sure it's on there,
On the 12th.
definitely.
It's gonna start on 12th Ave.
Okay. And on your signs, it's gonna have the route on, so people will know where the other stop sign.
Yes, this is not in stone and not
Ooh.
professionally done.
Okay.
This is the route.
So that leads into my next comment question in terms of just. This is kind of the kickoff parade,
Right.
for lack of a better terms, in terms of making this public knowledge.
Correct.
What are your plans for getting the word out?
Yeah.
So Sherry is going to spend some time at some key spots in the community. So she's gonna set up a table at Cleveland Brothers. She's going to set up a table at Senior Circle. She's going to set up a table, of course, we're gonna be at, not registration fair.
Community
Community showcase.
Yes, that's where we're gonna be. So we're gonna pick some key spots, Kim, to
Okay.
do in the next few weeks. To get,
And so can we help get that word out to those that maybe would be word of mouth generators?
absolutely.
In
So
other
once we
avenues?
have
So once you've got
our
materials,
materials,
photo of the driver and the concierge in front of the bus, that sort of thing.
But we'd like to,
That's
yeah, we
definitely in our
certainly
plan.
want to assist wherever we can getting the word out. I'm really proud of our e-news,
Mhm.
the email that goes out, and I think, as soon as you've got some written stuff about how the program is gonna go and what the loop will be and time, like, we definitely wanna help make this a success.
So
Ticklers.
we were notified in July that we were approved. And they told us to keep our mouth shut.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't you love when they do that? You run around,
Then they said you will see your grant funding July 31st. And we didn't. I'm like, uh-oh. So I sent an email, I was like, oh, no, it's on our end. You'll have it by August 15th. So we do have the money now. So now we're starting, because I have been burnt before, getting energy and time and stuff built and then it not follow through. So, yeah.
No, it's exciting news.
That's great, yeah. Yeah, no, that's great, you guys to do that. There's been lots of people saying, geez, we need a bus, we need some sort of. And
Well, it's a good opportunity to test it out.
And heading into the right season.
Yeah. One day in that week is just.
Probably won't be.
I know, but you have to start somewhere, but
Yeah, they start where, and we do have, drive happiness in our community. We just have to.
Get that program.
Well, and Sherry will do so much education with that, if everyone who gets on the local loop also gets information about, hey, do you need a ride? It's not on Wednesdays, here's how you access that, right? That's gonna help that credibility grow and people to go through that process.
That'll help you.
So you need more volunteers, or they're volunteers, right?
For the drive
For the
happy.
drive
They
happy.
do get an honorarium, but it is considered a volunteer position.
Coming for you. I could-
Well, I'm gonna direct you to Sherry because she
Sure,
knows
yeah.
way more than I do.
Yeah, so with that program, I guess some key things, just to remember with Drive Happiness. So they do all the background checks as part of that. So when you submit, your insurance, your registration, driver's abstract, criminal background check, with the vulnerable sector check on there. So they do all the background screening to make sure our drivers are as safe as we can. They don't require you to notify your personal insurance company. So because you're not being paid, it's just an honorarium. You are just driving for work, so you don't need to update your coverage there. But Drive Happiness does have a non-owned vehicle liability policy that covers any rides through them. So they have additional coverage should there be an accident. They've got that liability coverage covering our volunteer drivers. You get reimbursed, I believe, on a $10 in-town ride. It's $8 goes back to the driver. On that, Drive Happiness keeps $2 for their administration portion of that. And then, of course, that'd be prorated on those bigger city trips, depending on kilometers traveled and the time that the trip was estimated to take.
Volunteer does not have to handle any of the dollars.
Correct, yeah, Drive Happiness collects all that money and pays you separately later, so you're not having to interact with the person doing that. You don't do any of the bookings. It's very flexible, so when a ride is requested, it goes out, they get an email saying, hey, Dre's requesting a ride on Thursday at 2 o'clock, and you can yes or no in the calendar to click in. So we have a few people, some that are away in winter, so they can drive summertime if they're away snowboarding. And then the flip side of that, we actually have a guy that works road crew that has done some driving that in summer he's not available, but during the winter months he's off, he's home, it does that. So it's really flexible for the volunteers and has that insurance component and that safety component for everybody involved. So we know we have lots of ad hoc rides happening in the community of people that just do it out of
Yes,
the goodness of
absolutely.
their heart or do it for $5 here or there. So trying to capture those folks and encourage them to come into the official program. Gets everybody those safety checks, that insurance coverage, and it allows us to subsidy then as well. So we can still compensate the driver, even if the rider perhaps can't afford to pay.
But it does need to fit more of a stricter age demographic than the local loop.
Yeah, the loop gives us lots of flexibility. Drive Happiness, senior focused, and then folks with mobility challenges. So we've certainly had non-seniors sign up and be approved as riders with those mobility issues. They've been open to say, we'd let you give rides to everybody if you can fill every request. So if we had lots of volunteers and we were meeting every senior's request, then we could start to fill younger folks with the Drive Happiness drivers as well, but we just haven't had the capacity of volunteers.
Your statistics have still been, 20 rides not fulfilled.
Yeah, so we probably we fulfill a little better than half. I think it's kind of where we're shuffling out to. And I would say the bulk of what we are not filling currently is out of town requests. The in-town, I guess other things to think about with Drive Happiness that we were trying to promote is like delivery. So in our community, our grocery stores, unfortunately, just with the changes in insurance and things from their end, have stopped offering delivery. But they do offer curbside pickup. And so we've had Drive Happiness success with someone that just did a regular grocery order. So that person was set up with Dawn with their credit card or their account on file there at Freeze Brothers in this case. And so they called in their grocery order, Dawn's team picks it, gets it ready, it's been paid for already.
Oh,
The
and then they
driver
come
just
and-
comes and picks it up. So that person was housebound. They didn't want the ride themselves. It was too hard for them physically to actually go on the ride, but someone picked that up. So one, for people looking for that sort of service, to make them aware that they can sign up for Drive Happiness, and two, for drivers who maybe aren't as comfortable with wanting to, help take someone to a medical appointment, but I go to the grocery store multiple times every week. Yeah, I could pick up somebody else's stuff and swing by their house on my way home.
Very good.
So just those unique things that aren't necessarily ones people think of off the top of their head when they think of what the program could do. So that will be exciting. I know Sherry and I have talked on ideas she has on ways to capture those people that might be looking for different kinds of volunteer opportunities that maybe don't right off the bat think that this is for them, but might find that, oh yeah, it really could be.
One of those sticky notes.
Yep.
I had a lady that had approached me about having some difficulty registering as a driver. Who should they contact?
I think right now Sherry's gonna be our best contact person. And we've got great contacts with Drive Happiness, like our head office, so then we
Have
can.
Sherry's information.
So Sherry Shu is working at Links. And so that,
Contact links?
Yeah.
yep, that individual can just phone or
Right.
email Links.
Okay.
And we'll get it directed to Sherry.
Thank you.
So it used to be that Drive, or it has been up until this moment, that all Drive Happiness referrals came into the town office, which would then, of course, be a referral system. So is that going to be shifting?
Well, Sherry's gonna be the primary contact. We'll of course still have information here. We'll still have. folks
100%,
available.
but if you're looking for that local connection and ease of use, that's
I-
shifting.
I
'cause
think it's
we-
shifting, Lori.
And what are you calling this program, this service? The loop, the,
The local loop is going to be the local loop.
okay.
Okay, really tricky.
No, that's excellent.
And it's a hop on, hop off style.
When it stopped.
Yes, yeah, please let the vehicle come to a complete stop. Correct. Stop.
Yeah, get thrown out.
And it's going to be Wednesday, so the food bank is here, probably one of the major stops. And I'm going to build, like in the back of the bus, there's a 4-foot compartment that's enclosed. And I'm gonna build shelving in there so that if we do stop at Freeze Brothers, and get a bag of groceries, we got a place they can put, and that's stuff. And I'm more than willing to help carry in, whatever. Yeah,
Where did the map land?
we're gonna make it accommodating.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Can I see the map?
How do I have it back?
Yeah.
Oh, I did.
Yeah, so there's lots of potential there, and we've talked to, like, food banks is a great example of this will serve some folks with the transportation struggles. We still have Bill as our regular Drive to Happiness guy on call too. If someone needs doorstop to doorstop, that the loop doesn't work in their world for that, we'll have those options. So kind of just being able to tag team that and give people the what fits best for you piece of things.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see down the road, for certain events, like for some people like Canada Day or something, when, there's a lot of people that maybe would attend that don't because they are housebound or haven't got a way to get there, or if there's something going on at community center, or, yeah. So,
And
Well,
so that
Steve
the
is-
spin off.
yeah, and so running the bus for special occasions.
Cause like, weeks, like, I've done the manor and stuff, we take them out to
Strawberry.
Scapa,
Yeah.
for the strawberry tea and that. And this way, the whole community is gonna be involved, if I have to only. Whatever it's gonna take to accommodate them,
That's awesome.
this one's for, I think it's 3 hours or 4 hours.
Yeah, you see the first group out and
Yeah.
start.
Back in,
Yeah, and we've talked to Drive Happiness will do some proactive work for us as well with anyone who's a signed up client with them, which everyone who's gonna access any of these programs will become signed up in their system. Their staff could do some promotion, so their staff can actually do a call out to everybody who's registered with them and say, hey, did you know next Tuesday is the mayor's garden party and we're offering rides? So you have two options. The local loop's gonna stop here, I can look at your address and say the stop's gonna be this far. Or we can arrange you an individual driver. We just haven't had the excess of volunteers to be able to really leverage that yet. But if we get those people where we have those volunteers in place, we absolutely, and their team is like welcome, open to do that as part of their service that they provide. that they, aren't just a call a cab company, they want to promote things like that. They also get like a copy of Lynx's program guide and when the PCN, or I guess it was through AHS at the time, they made their little seniors book that had sort of key contacts that you could contact if you were a senior, how to get a hold of Helping Hands, things like that were in that little booklet. So Drive Happiness has all of those materials too. So they'll mail that out to people that sign up to become riders. They'll also, if they're on the phone with somebody and someone mentions that they're trying to source some sort of service, they kind of will act as those navigators and referrers to knowing that if they don't know where to send them, they can get a hold of Lynx or the town to get more information from us to help connect that rider. So just that extra piece that they do that isn't just, I called an Uber, that they're really looking out for those seniors and trying to help be kind of that community connection piece, even though they're not all locally located here.
You might have to allow for the people who plan terribly, which is a problem with Drive Happiness.
Yeah, for sure.
This is today, and they'll message, I need a ride today. They get to the bus stop. Mr. Luke comes around. They don't have a token, but they have $5.
So Lori's just asked the actual same question,
Very
and
nice, think of what.
because we accept cash.
Beautiful.
So Sherry will
Cash is
be,
beautiful.
yeah,
Sherry
absolutely.
can, make change on the bus.
She can make change on the bus. She can sell additional tokens if
Oh.
we're going with the tokens, right on the bus, making it easy as possible. But yes, you have $5 in your pocket and that's how you're gonna ride today. Beautiful.
Excellent.
And yeah, on the subsidy side, I guess we really tried to keep it simple, knowing there's lots of different processes of how you can go through all that. We're really kind of going on the honor system, I think, of if you're reaching out saying you're in need of that we're going to honor that, and not get too in the weeds of creating barriers of a tax return and things like that, or a $5 subsidy when we have it budgeted as part of this grant. So being fairly open to trying to make that as barrier free as we can for people that need the subsidized portion of things. It's worked well with us for Drive Happiness so far, as they have had some out of town riders that have requested the subsidy. And so I just get an email and they say, so-and-so says they're located in Hanna. This is the deal. It's going to be $168. And we had some funding from our initial transportation grant back a few years ago now that we were able to leverage for that. And so then Drive Happiness twice a year usually sends me an invoice that says, here's what you guys owe back on subsidy. Hasn't been huge amounts. We stretched $1,500 that we had for quite some time to be able to use for that. So it's worked really great there to kind of honor system. I think people, if they're, Sandra pointed out earlier, that's tough for people to come ask for help. So if you put yourself out there to ask for it, we're not going to make you
your
justify a
income
whole
tax
bunch
in,
of things.
yeah.
And just looking at the staff time for that and the other piece of that, we felt it was smart to just honor it and give the subsidy.
You will be given the tax receipts, because some people will be requesting them,
Tax receipts, sorry for which.
or because some can use this for income tax.
Well, if
Oh.
it was a medical appointment, that won't be the local loop because there won't be enough mileage that would account to go towards your taxes. And I'm not sure how Drive
I believe
Happiness
Drive
does
Happiness
that.
will give you a receipt for the, like if you booked a trip to Red Deer, say, for a
Yeah.
medical, they can give you a receipt saying you paid $168 to go there. So if you're someone who qualifies to have that written off, you would have a way to get a receipt on that side of things, but yeah, not at the $5 local level.
Anybody lives in Hanna, 40 kilometers outside of Hanna, if the medical appointment's farther than that.
If you're leaving town, essentially,
Yes.
right, anywhere you're gonna go on that side of things, so yeah, we'll definitely,
Right,
the Drive Happiness ladies are used to dealing with that, because of course, lots of the people that they service all across the province fall into that bucket.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I get made that delivering people.
Any other questions? Exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we get a motion to thank Ray for the presentation regarding the new public transportation initiative that will be starting in August. How's it going? I got you, girl.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers, Mr. Neil.
Thank you.
Martha, do you want to present today?
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm done my raspberries.
That, I'm just excited. That is just gonna make such an impact.
I really think so, Lori.
Oh,
Yeah,
huge.
I really think so. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
It's gonna rain.
Yeah. It was raining in Drumheller this morning and Sunnyside got rain last night, so
Oh, I'm sorry.
as usual, we haven't gotten anything yet, but Mr. Nill.
I think we need to vote on your
Oh,
last ones.
motion, vote, all in favor, carried. Mr. Nill,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just, obviously the priority project ongoing right now is our downtown project, so. As you see, phase one is complete, except for the final lift of asphalt and the painting lines on there, plus the benches and planters and stuff that will go on the pump outs. Phase two, is moving right along. They've got all the underground services in and done. Started tearing out all the concrete sidewalks and curbs. So the next step will be having the concrete formed and poured and getting the sidewalks done, and then they'll finish the base work and move forward. I don't know, last I heard, they were still on temporary water. They were just primarily the pressure test is done, everything's good. They were just waiting on the bacterial results from Alberta Health Services before they would then take them off temporary and they'd be on permanent water. They are going to be moving forward into what we call phase three, which is the last half block by up to the post office here, probably starting next week. I know we initially talked about each phase at a time, but we get to a point now where they can continue working on the underground stuff on phase three while they're completing the above ground work on phase two. And with the intersection being opened at Dr. Dave's and Bubble Tea there is access on that intersection on Center Street is gonna be closed regardless whether they're working on phase two or phase three. So hopefully that will move forward. I know our biggest challenge moving forward on phase three will be the office. It's the busiest place in town. But talking with them, I think we're okay. People will not be able to obviously pull up in front of the post office, but they'll be able to pull up in front of the Abbey or across the street from the Abbey. Access in the post office building is set back 4 or 5 feet from the sidewalk. So that portion of sidewalk isn't being touched or changed. So they've opened their doors, know their doors open. So I think, it might be a little more challenging for somebody. I know they have some individuals who drive their scooter in there and drive their scooter out. It might be a little challenging for them, but I know talking with the staff there, they indicated they'll talk to those people who may have those challenges. And if they phone the post office and say, I'm Joe Smith, and they said they would make every effort to grab the mail for you. So hopefully everything's moving along there. The other, I guess, news on there is the streetlights have been up and installed and energized, but weren't on until last night. We had put in the request for the energized, and they said 3 to 5 days. It was longer than 3 to 5 days because the excuse was that their staff were busy working in Jasper. So, but they did, when we followed up, they did, and I noticed they were working on it yesterday and they were on last night, so that's how that's moving forward. We're still tentatively probably looking at being done completely, probably somewhere between the 1st of October to mid-October. And should be complete. Hopefully it's a bit of a mixed bag. We're supposed to get a lot of rain today, which is good in one sense, but if we do get a lot of rain, it probably will delay them probably till next week. I would think just the condition of the earth that exposed. Again, not too many surprises on 2nd Avenue. There was a little bit of contamination that was found and removed on the service lines in Truman. The old Truman lot, and we kind of anticipated that that would be the case. They did find, I think, 3 old fuel tanks under the ground there. And, they just found on the weekend, found a cistern, by Wecker's building, credit union. So on the south side of the street, there was a big 11-foot vault cistern there, and, so. But they cleaned all that up and got everything tied in, and, so it's moving forward. As far as the, compensation for the businesses, we're still working through that process. I have a letter drafted, give to Winona and Caitlin to, work their magic in terms of mail merge and getting the addresses and the right people and the amount that they would be eligible for. I have talked to a few businesses who've had questions about it. And general sense that I'm getting is that, they're happy with it. And pleased that there was some compensation. So, we're working through that process now. Facilities update, not a ton. We're getting ready for rodeo, so dirt's hauled in. I know the rodeo committees started their preparations and getting it all set up and ready for September 13th. Everything else is moving forward. Swimming pool is closed to the public, and they'll be winterizing it. Spray park will probably be open till just prior to the rodeo, so probably somewhere around September 10th to the 12th. It will be open. A lot of it depends on how the forecast is. If the forecast is for hot weather, we'll keep it open. If it's starting to turn cooler, and because generally with that, if you're not into the mid-20s or higher, it's pretty cold. So yeah.
How the dog dates and what?
I think it went okay. I was there for about 10 minutes, about 11 o'clock in the morning. So there was, I don't know, half a dozen dogs there. So I haven't seen or heard numbers or how much was donated to Park Sky. So rescue jumped in. Music in the Park had their last one on Sunday for the season. Most of our staff, summer staff are wound up or done. Mark Nakota had given me some information from Harvest Sky about the Visitor Information Center. So with their funding they received or expect to receive through Canada Summer Jobs for their summer employment, they expect to be break even operation, maybe slight profit. So good news, last year they didn't get any grant funding, and I think council subsidized them 29, I think. So that's a good news story. Maybe turning to more bad news story. I did have a conversation with Pace just through email, just letting them know that I was leaving and Matthew was here. They did indicate that they are planning to file their application for their project this fall. And they did indicate that they would had some additional information they wish to share with council. I have told them the only council meeting in September is the 10th. And I've got a preliminary on that agenda, and I've passed Matthew's contact information on to them. Make any arrangements to attend. So kind of think like council's hoping it might go away, but I don't think it's ready to go away at this point in time. So last thing, and I know Councilor Bowden can probably share more information on this, but Harvest Sky Economic Development Corporation has hired their manager to replace Mark Nakota. So a young gentleman by the name of Tom Strout, he began work on Monday. And I got the chance to meet him for about 30 seconds was it. I was in the middle of the meeting. So he has started, and Mark spent a little bit of time with him this week. I'm hoping potentially Councilor Bowden or Councilor Warwick reach out to him. And I'm not sure where the communication is with Harvest Sky. I know you haven't even had a board meeting yet, so I don't know.
Well, we're meeting Thursday,
Tomorrow.
tomorrow morning, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And that is just going to be with the rest of the board to introduce introduce Mr. Trout to to us. And everybody and such, and so, yeah, I'm kind of anxious that, he's very, excited. He's just graduated from, university with an economic development background. He is very young, but he has worked, he's from around here, he's familiar with the area, looking to move into Hanna. And, yeah, I think he is very conscientious about trying to keep things going, all the work that Mark has done with, as far as Harvest Sky, as well as coordinating with the charities. Economic development people, I think it's, will carry on quite well. A very good appearance. Yeah.
So I'll leave it with you two, then if you're meeting tomorrow morning and just ask him if he's available for September 10th.
Yeah.
At 6 o'clock, and if he is, then I'm just letting Matthew know next week. And you can put him on the agenda, and knowing you two will be the two that have met him, you can certainly do the, well, you will tomorrow, hopefully, right? You will be able to introduce him to council, and he can, kind of fill council in on his background and answer any questions council might have.
And the only reason that I have met him was because I was available to sit on the and such. So unfortunately, not everybody in the board was able to sit on the committee, but there were representatives from each of the three jail members that were there to do the interview. So yes, look forward to bringing them and introducing them at council.
And just a reminder for everyone, the last day of taxes is August 31st, which falls on a Saturday, which then means, and we've got a holiday on Monday, so September 3rd at 4:30 is last day for taxes, so.
And can I just interject?
Sure, yeah.
If I see reminding everybody that we're meeting tonight with regards to Mr. Neal's retirement, and unfortunately, we'll be there. I will be there, but not looking forward to it. Mr. Neal leaving, but excited for our opinion problems. Future things to come.
Okay, that's all I have unless there's any questions from anyone.
I see the PLRD building.
Yeah, just nothing, they haven't moved forward. I don't know if it's I think it's one of those things, and I haven't talked to them about it. I think it's one of those things where they first got the building, thought they might need it, and have been able to operate successfully without it, so. Yeah, go ahead, Council.
I just wanted to comment on Epic Adventure. My two grandkids were in it all summer, and kudos to Sydney and her staff. They did exceptional. They learned incredible things. They went on great adventures, and it was just wonderful. I wish more people would.
Yeah, it was a strange year. Numbers were down. And I
Numbers
don't
were
know, I don't know why we didn't do anything differently, didn't increase prices, just
The cost of living,
could be, yeah, could be part of it, yeah.
Because have two kids all summer, full-time was $1,800. So
Yeah.
we did a big split seas between the three of us, and it made it more affordable, but the kids looked forward to it every day.
Good,
So
thank
it
you, I
was
appreciate
wonderful,
that.
wonderful.
Any other questions of Mr. Neal?
Yeah, how are the seats coming? Are they getting put in?
Oh, well, the plastic for the sections A and B, Kevin's a little frustrated, but he's waiting, they're waiting for their supply to come in, and they haven't given him a date yet.
So what's the contingency if the?
Well, the seats are still there.
But they're still there?
Yeah.
Okay.
We haven't removed anything, so it's not like there won't have sections A and B there.
Yeah.
No, really?
Every note.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Neal. Town of Hanna drafting purchasing policy.
So, Mr. Mayor, I'll just go through this purchasing policy with you. And I want to make the comment that it is still draft. looked at a few similar, regions and communities in terms of what they offer for local, how they deal with it, and everybody does it a little bit different. Some don't even mention it, some do. So I have a draft policy that I prepared that's there. I tried to keep it, relatively short and simple. But the highlights, I guess, of the policy as we move forward that council may have some questions or comments on is I know we talked about this a few months ago. And I don't think we came to any consensus, and I don't know if we'll come to any consensus tonight. But we talked about local preference given to suppliers. Local businesses, so the policy does say local preference given to suppliers operating from taxable property. And I did use 15%. I know that was a number that was thrown out last time, and I know it wasn't necessarily a number that was agreed to, but it was a number that was thrown out to. So that's certainly something council may want to have discussion on moving forward. On purchases up to $25,000, provided all other things are considered equal in terms of quality, delivery date, those types of things. There is a clause in there just for council's information that projects funded by a high order of government in whole or in part will not receive any local preference, and for the most part will be in excess of $25,000. For example, our downtown project, that's one of the things, and even anything that we're probably getting significant funding for will have to follow the free trade agreements in terms of having to have an open procurement for those thresholds of $75,000 for goods and services and $200,000 for construction. So those are things that are out of our control, mandated by the higher levels of governments and the free trade agreements that our province and our country have entered into. The other thing that it notes is that we are a member of the bulk purchasing programs of both RMA, or Rural Municipality Association, and Alberta municipalities. These bulk purchasing programs, generally, we do not go out and seek additional competitive pricing. They are to be the best pricing they can get in terms of their bulk purchases. The one example, we do buy a couple of examples where we use RMA specifically quite often is with equipment purchases, not equipment purchases, but greater blades, things like that. And water supplies from EMCO, they're part of the RMA process, so they've got the bulk pricing on it. So we have to buy water meters, or we buy pipe or whatever, we get the bulk purchasing price that RMA provides us. The other one that we do use extensively in the office through this program is stationery and paper. So we are able to get our paper at bulk pricing. We buy it through Staples, who have the agreement with RMA for bulk purchasing price. I believe one of our local businesses is selling paper or was selling paper, and we did look at pricing, and we were able to get through the bulk purchasing price probably about a third, 33 to 40% cheaper than we could locally. So those are some of the dynamics around that. The policy also identifies purchasing authority limits for different levels of staff. Again, the key thing is provided the expenditures were included in already approved operating or capital budget, and identifies that in the event of emergency, the CEO has authority to make necessary expenditures. So I don't know if there's anything. I know you just got it, and I apologize for that. I knew today we weren't going to be making any decisions on how we're moving forward. I just wanted to present it to you, give you an opportunity to review it, think about it. Certainly with Matthew coming in, I think it's certainly something you will want to have his feedback on in terms of what his thoughts on the policy are moving forward. But I just, at this point in time, Mr. Mayor, wanted to present the draft and answer any questions that council may have on the draft.
Mr. Bolden?
The CAO limit of the purchasing authority at $250,000. Is that one, like, is that standard, or is that higher than our water.
No, it's fairly standard. Again, the condition is that it has to be in a approved capital or operating budget, so. It's not just something new that I
No.
can spend up to. It has to be included in those already approved operating capital budgets.
Pretty good party to me.
That might be the reason, yeah. We have $1,000 for a
Yes.
party.
Yeah, any questions?
So
and
I
comments?
I do have a question. I know there was a comment from a counselor prior to this that said there in the past and maybe up to this point, there was consideration if it was in a margin of 15%, that was kind of the standard practice.
Yeah, I don't know, again. From our staff perspective, I know you'll see the funds that we spend. And I think if you look back and you'll see that probably 90%, 90 to 95% of the funds that we spend are local. In our local community, provided that our local community has that service. We generally, for most small things, don't even look elsewhere. Like you'll notice, our grocery supplies, you'll notice hardware supplies, you'll notice well, we don't even contemplate buying out of town for most of those things. It's here, it's available, we drive down, we pick it up, we don't even compare pricing. So I don't know, we never had 15%. That was always the question I was asked from staff is, okay, I can buy this in town for this, but it's 15%, 20% more than I can get it elsewhere. Where should we buy it? And generally, if it was a small ticket item, under $1,000 or under $500, whatever, we bought it here, even if it was a $20% difference. But we never had that line, and I don't want to necessarily. That's the trouble with a policy. I don't want to get to the point where we go, okay, it's 16%. Do we, if it's relatively close to that 15% mark, my recommendation, my suggestion would be and it's available local, we buy it.
Yeah, I guess I just wondered about that because I did have a situation with a local business and I had their numbers and what was purchased. And I just wanted to know if it was practice, because in fact it hadn't been, that was not the case at all. The purchase had been made and it was definitely not. That was not the practice. So I guess I'm just looking at what is practice and what we could put into practice. And I guess we just kind of.
Well, the practice is fairly open. Councilor Warwick, the previous purchasing policy agency didn't have a lot of meat to it. This one certainly has some more meat to it. I think the thing that brought this about, and I think that you guys as a council need to get your head wrapped around and be on the same page is how we all believe in this room that local purchasing is important. No questions asked, but at what point do you, that's the real money thing. What point do you go, geez, I can buy it out of town and I can save the town of Hanna 20% or 25%. And on some of these items, if it's up to $25,000, that could be $3,000, $4,000 on a $25,000 item. Where do we go? I know there's been comments that said we should buy local no matter what. And I question that at times because, we also have to be stewards of the money. So it's trying to find that happy line. But I think the premise needs to be, and the objective moving forward still remains to be that we try and buy local as much as possible, as long as it's within reason. That's where it gets subjective with what is reason and is 15% reasonable, is 20% reasonable, is 10, like that's.
And
I
think there's a lot of factors to equate into that. I mean, I've talked to some individuals when we purchase some different things and, one purchase item, they might not even have that kind of margin. But the next item, you have more than that margin. So they could beat it by 20%, whereas this particular one, they can't. So I think there's a balancing act in all of that as well. I mean, we can say 15% across the board. So today you try to buy a hammer, you can't get that, you can't get it here locally because somewhere else, the fact that we're shopping somewhere else, spending time, energy, resources, and I've looked at those numbers too, going out of town. I did
I did a comprehensive study on one particular project. And if you actually looked at all those numbers, it was shocking that you thought you were getting a better deal. By sending 3 of our staff out of town, renting equipment, bringing it in, doing all the work that needs to be done, didn't know how to run the equipment properly, didn't get the service or, you know, whatever we could have got locally. And in the end, it ended up being more, but no one did the numbers. They didn't do the calculations of any of that. But, you know, when you sit down and figure out all those numbers in the end, what is the balance in that, of all of that? So I just think there's so many things to be determined, and I would ask too that we could table this.
Well,
Because
there's
this
no,
did come,
at this point, Counselor Warwick, it's just here for information.
yes. but
So there's
I
no
don't-
decision, it's just here for information.
Because I think there needs to be more time and consideration,
Yeah.
and conversations like you've alluded to, thank you, around this particular subject matter.
Counselor Olson had his hand up.
This is my frustration with policy. Yes, it's here, we have a 15% number. If, we'll pick on Lori, wants to buy a computer from Best Buy. It's 20% cheaper, buy from Best Buy, she could go buy it locally. The words, all things considered equal, well, if local person says, yes, here's your computer in a box, I'm not gonna open it, and hand it to her, it's all equal. But if local person says, oh, I can open it, I'll turn it on, I'm gonna left it, so I'll do this. I'll check
That has
the data.
value.
That's value, which blows that out of the water. But the plus is 15%, well, it's up to her discretion. So this frustrating, Paul, you can twist it however you want, but it is a good guideline and justification for any of those.
Yeah, it's very difficult from
And
staff
in my eye, it
perspective to
accomplishes
try and balance economics versus shopping local.
Yeah.
It can be challenged, and it's hard to put a black and white
Absolutely.
number.
Relationships and stuff are important as
Yeah.
well.
Employment, these businesses employ.
100%, and we all know that.
You know,
Yeah.
they're all,
Yeah,
there's
no,
a big
there's-
factor there too, 15%. So then what does it say? That we have people within the community that these businesses employ as well. So what percentage does that equate to?
On the other hand, it's difficult to ask a business to sell me a product at a loss, and I expect them to put the time and effort into that. Like
Based on the
there's
service they provide, right?
based on this, right, because they provide that service. I'm used to that service. That's the service I want. And then I go and say, well, I want it for less money. They're losing. They may be losing.
So like I said, it's just here for information. I know it's a lot to think about but I think as Councilor Warwick said, there is some thinking that needs to go into it. And like I said, I think today's intent was to get something down on writing and something to work off of, whether it's 100% accurate, whether it needs to be tweaked, changed, that's certainly in council's hands to provide that direction. And I will leave it with you guys to provide that direction to Matthew when he's here and can solidify one and bring one back that council was happy with and can support.
I also agree that, more things have to be considered within that 15% of all the extras you're doing. It's not just that particular item. That, yeah, if it breaks down, they're around to fix it, or, you know, so all of that is a value. I don't know what you can really put it, because I don't know.
But that's where you, and it's very subjective when you say all other things considered equal. So, you know, price is the price, but you have to make sure that price, all things considered equal. So if they're gonna, Kyle used Best Buy is going to start it up, install everything, do all of that is similar to what a local would do, then all things are considered equal. If they're not, then all things aren't considered equal. So.
From an employer's point of view, it's ensuring your staff are aware that the bottom line is not always the number, so that they can justify their purchase. And you have to empower them to do that. So they don't go, well, it was 15 cents cheaper. That's all that matters. But to say the home hardware staff are amazing. They'll show you how to use it. They'll drop it off for you, and make sure that they're empowered to know that they can make that decision. Because at the end of the day, the taxpayers have to understand that even if it's slightly more, we have no businesses in town, we don't have a town.
And my comment to that, Councilor Murphy, is I think currently our staff right now do feel empowered to make those decisions. They're not coming to me saying, can we do this? But again, I think they start to get their, back, not necessarily backs up, but they start to second guess themselves when they hear comments from council saying we should have bought that. We should have bought that in town instead of out of town. So they start to then go, oh, am I making the right decision? Am I not making the right decision? I think right now they do feel empowered. They don't tell me when they're going to buy a hammer or a shovel or anything. They go and they buy their hammer and the shovel and we move forward. If they get to a point which talks about in the policy in terms of, you know, I don't have staff that'll go up and I'm just gonna buy this for $5,000. You know, they'll come and talk to me and say, well, I can buy this. This is what it's gonna be. But like I said, 90% of our purchases are probably under $100 or $200 a particular item. And they right now do make those decisions on their own. And like I said, they do purchase 90 to 95% of that probably local because they have the same relationship at Home Hardware as a staff person, as a person that anybody else does, or UFA or co-op or wherever they buy it. So.
Councilor Ward.
I would just like to say that I'm not proposing this to condemn our staff. I want to commend the staff for some of the things they do, but they have to be enabled, empowered, and given direction, which I think we need to do, which I think we've been remiss on because we don't have a policy in place. So I think if you empower them, give them direction, you know what, there's no question to where you're gonna buy, I'll just use paper, I don't know where you buy your paper, but where you buy your paper, where you do your shopping. I mean, but I think it's just giving direction and knowing we have the support of the council and beyond the council, our people, our citizens, our businesses. I mean, I'm hearing from some of our businesses where they don't feel supported by the town. And yet they say that here the town promotes the town, live the lifestyle. They want the town to, all the citizens to promote or to support these businesses, but yet they themselves are seeing that they're not getting the support from the very town themselves. So what does that say to them? So I don't think, I'm not bringing this forth to condemn. I think it's a positioning where we empower and give direction and support the decisions that our staff. With the town.
Yeah, and then I guess my comment around that would be, I get frustrated when I hear comments like that from you, that businesses are saying that no business has come to me and said, how come you don't shop at my store?
Yeah.
How come the town doesn't shop at my store? Or I don't hear that from anybody. And that's where, from my perspective, it gets frustrating because I'm not hearing that conversation. And again, you need to encourage people, if they have those, to bring them forward to, in this case, Matthew, to bring them forward and say, hey, just wondering, we supply this, and this. I'm just wondering why you guys haven't bought, like, so we can have that discussion and be aware of it. Because if they're talking to you and you're not bringing it forward, I don't know who's feeling that way. And it's important that we feel that way. Similar to what Sergeant Wellsman said, if people don't let them know, they don't know there's an issue. People don't let us know in particular cases of people and businesses are frustrated. I would love to hear from them why they're frustrated, why they're not buying there.
Well, one individual said, we have had conversation, but it was to no one.
But no one's had that conversation with them.
Okay, so I know that we have one point with one other staff. And still they're seeing, they understand and start seeing the direction of our purchasing and purchase development.
My comment would be, if that happened, certainly I appreciate them going directly to the individual who's making the purchase. But if they're still not satisfied that they were heard, then they need to go up the chain. And that's what I would expect. So,
Well, I think that the bigger picture here is how we do our purchasing. It's beyond that. It's what the overall picture is and how we do business. So it's not about one or two businesses. It's about all the businesses and it's about the town.
Councilor Bowden.
I think a lot of it too is, people just not being aware of what maybe some services can provide. I'm just thinking as far as contractors and things. And when, somebody is, say a director is used to going to one individual and not realizing that there are others that are offering that service, and the business has as well. How are they, expecting people to, support them in a particular, field or whatever, if they're not putting it out there that they offer the service?
100%, Councilor, and
I
that,
think
we,
you know
we,
what I mean.
we sometimes don't know some of the services or even products, like, and I'll use, again, we seem to use in home hardware a lot. I didn't know they sold office chairs. Wasn't something that even was in my mind that I think home hardware would sell office chairs, but we found out home hardware sells office chairs, so we bought some from them, but it was just something, initial first thought is, yeah, home hardware, that's not office chairs, but it's knowing, it's knowing the product, and I know a lot of our businesses can bring in stuff that might not be traditionally stuff that they have in their store. But it's just being aware of that, and I agree, Councilor Bowden, there are some of our contractors who do things that we may not be aware of. And then have inadvertently not talked to them about it, so.
Or not being given the opportunity to bid on a job.
Yeah.
You know, something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
You know,
No, there's
some
things that we can always do better in terms of learning
but
what
it needs to
supplies
be-
are there, and what
Yeah.
products are available.
Well, and like I say, the business needs to get it out there that they offer that service.
Well, I would speak to that online. I mean, home hardware, you can buy vehicles just in enough.
Yeah,
We
see,
can,
I
we have the
would,
purchasing power. There's,
Yeah.
they pretty much can, we can purchase
Yeah.
probably anything through home hardware. But it's all online.
Yeah.
So putting it out there, I don't know, we don't have enough manpower hours to tell you everything.
No, no,
And I'm just using home hardware
Yeah,
too.
no.
It's word, yeah.
No, and
Home
that would
hardware, I
be-
hope Chris is
but I
watching
think-
this,
but I would
there-
think,
there's so much, I can't remember the UPC or the PCU numbers, there's millions.
Yeah.
There's millions of them, that, purchasing items that we can have, can every store carry that? We sure can.
but my comment, Councilor Warwick, would be, and I would, this is my opinion, no scientific research, but my opinion would be if you asked 100 people in the town of Hanna whether you could buy a car at Home Hardware or from Home Hardware, 99% of them would probably say no, and but our staff is a microcosm of our community too, so they wouldn't even have thought that. And I didn't know they sold office chairs. I found out they sold office chairs. Yes, but it's not something that.
How many times a week do you see somebody
Yeah.
post on Facebook, where can I buy an
It's a
office
learning
chair?
opportunity too, 100%.
Yeah.
If in doubt, this is how because I go in there, they probably think I stalk them, because it's my facial blink. If in doubt, the
Yeah.
last shop, every time, and she'll tell me where to get it or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's been great, so they are amazing.
No doubt.
Anything else? Okay. We want a motion to that? No.
Yeah,
Yes.
so the motion is just to accept this through draft purchasing policy for information.
Motion of council accept the drafting policy for information that the council provide feedback to the draft policy for loose EAO and review intention for prepare final purchasing policy be brought before council at a future date for approval. Councilor Warwick. All in favor? Carried. Round table. Mr. Kroll, sounds like you got some interesting things going on.
Well, just signed a contract that would be links to the power service. I've got a I-36 meeting coming up, Bangladesh. Tried to organize 4 times and never did succeed.
Can't get anyone closer, right?
No. So, that's coming up. And we're- other than that, that's about it.
Councilor Bowden, you've got a little bit on the go as well with your.
I think time's on the go. Anyways, following, I'd like to thank council for allowing, me to speak on behalf of the Hanna Society last meeting. the next day, the gate was closed and locked. And so we greatly appreciate that, and the traffic has gone down considerably, and we are, we're marking our territory. And we got things on the go, getting things to put up there to restrict the vehicle access for, pedestrians and cyclists and non-motorized vehicles unless, it has something to do with an event that we're hosting. Then we will have a gate to allow people to come in, or unless it's for our own use. Yeah, but things going on with, the roundhouse, just, I'm sorry, but it has some impact on the community. We, have updated, the start date for potential starting the construction. Our engineers figuring sometime in October. We've had several, meetings with them in the last little bit. Doing a couple grants applications, one's due on the 31st and one's on the 15th. To do some more work out there as well. And, we were just getting, as far as the chamber, we did have the, golf tournament out there. I think it was a fair success. And there was a good turnout. It was, quite a nice day, I believe. And, I think that, well, I guess we were also handing out, certificates for the small business awards with the chamber on those that were nominated, and got some pictures for some people that were nominated, and with their certificates that will be posted by, the manager of the chamber shortly, if not already being done. And, I just have a comment. I stopped by the other day and was watching the men working and operating that equipment with Brooks Asphalt. And somehow, you see, I posted a video. It was amazing of how talented they are in getting things to just pour just right. And I just thought that maybe some young people would be interested in seeing that. And so I just commend them on their abilities, and just really amazed at how well they are able to operate that big equipment. And that's all.
It is amazing to watch, and not only equipment, but I mean, well, just what we have. If it's something that we don't do, for example, your husband, with his welding, I mean, is some of the stuff he does and creates for my third party work is just bizarre. They'll come in with a piece and it'll have a bend this way and a twist that way and one of these, and Steve will make it, and I'm looking at it going, geez, that's exactly what the guy wanted. Warwick's Home Hardware, as far as sourcing stuff out, we all have our little niches that we do, and this kind of spins back to the purchasing policy. I think if we market ourselves as businesses in town, and we share our abilities and products and knowledge, I think that falls part of that.
So, yeah, just further to your comment with the Brooks office, I've talked to numerous business owners on the street who have watched them work while they were there and just sat and watched. Can't believe how deft they are and
Precise
and two of them at the same time, so.
like a ballet.
Lots of business people say, yeah, they're really good. I have to find myself sitting there watching them for 10-15 minutes just to see what they're doing, because it's so interesting, so.
So that's all I want
Yeah.
to say. I really commend that, and being so careful of removing concrete for the sidewalks away from the business.
Yeah. Councilor Orwick?
I just want to say thank you to the staff for the advertising of the businesses that are being affected down there. I just think it's great that you can just like pull that up and you see that, the businesses are identified.
Yeah, no, that was something that you brought forward and we
Yeah.
appreciate that.
And I think it's
Suggestion.
as well with, mentioning that they're open for business and that these are the businesses that are available to them. Very interesting. I had an opportunity on Saturday to engage with a group of individuals that were on a scavenger hunt. This is an annual event that started during COVID. They traveled from Lethbridge down to the US border and back up here. And of course, they have landmarks that they have to identify from point A to point B. Hanna is the final
on day one, their final point, which they have to identify, the nickelback murals or anything associated with the nickelback. So, and they decorated the vehicles, they have to, drive vehicles that are, old jalopies, I will say, that are barely viable for the road. They have to put less oil in every 100 kilometers. I don't know if anybody noticed them around town. Some had deers on them and feeders stuck to them. I asked them if they were safe or roadworthy, and they identified that they were, but it was very interesting. They really loved Hanna. They came, they spent time here, they ate here, they went out here, and this was for 2 years in a row had been one of their final destinies, which was at 531 kilometers that day. And then they had, the next day, they would go through, Carbon out to the Rocky Mountains and make their way back to Lethbridge again. But I was happy to hear that Hanna had somehow in all of that been, chosen as one of the places because of the nickelback mural and whatnot.
I heard about
That would be a
or something.
great, did you know, e-news
Yeah.
And
for
you know,
future
I
to
asked
connect
them,
us.
they had taken my email. and
Okay.
They want to send me some information, but it is, you can find them online. And they have a Facebook profile and there is, and it's really interesting, they
But if
find
they could let
gravel
us
pit on
know,
their way
yeah.
and shovels, it's,
Yeah.
scoops of, there's all kinds of things you might have heard about.
No, but I saw something on Facebook about someone had questioned the vehicles in town.
Yeah.
And I saw a little bit of the explanation, but I'd never even heard of it before. I had to be busy on Saturday, so I never noticed it.
And thanks for identifying, because one of the gentlemen did make mention of how dark it was in our downtown. And I thought the same thing, and it just dawned on me that our streetlights went on until last night, so that's why. Because they had lights and stuff on their cars, and you could really, and they're like, it's really dark down here, and I go, yeah. I didn't even think about it at the time, right, but anyhow. CF Meridian, we're having a public meeting on September 12th at 1 p.m. I've also been asked to participate in Meridian Futures Symposium in Red Deer, which will be September 17th to 19th. So those 3 days I will be in Red Deer during that time, taking in the symposium too at that time. And that's all I have to say.
Perfect. Councilor Olsen.
I'm not sure, I've got nothing to add, your worship.
Golf course made it through the year with no water.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think they're same condition as every other golf course.
Yeah.
Yellow, but I don't think.
Yeah, I
they're-
scurried out a little bit during the chamber tournament and the greens look great. And,
Greens are fantastic.
Yeah. And the rest is what it is. So
No, season went as expected, lots of compliments, everybody that comes from out of town to play here, there's. The men's open this weekend, I think there'll be probably 60 to 80 golfers out there quite easily, for both days, and they all show up Friday and do a practice round. A good weekend.
perfect. Councilor Murphy.
I had my Marigold meeting on Saturday, which is why I missed all the cars. That would have been so fun. So I was down in Strathmore for that. Went very well. That's about it.
So question, I don't know if you can answer. Your library former manager situation, is that progressing?
Ongoing.
It's progressing through the legal channels.
Okay.
We are not accepting.
Okay.
In somewhere $200,000 for 8 months of bad work. So.
Okay.
We're fighting it.
Then that's the right decision.
Yeah, and our director, we have, Jen Steinbrecher, is all she needed was to have us have faith in her, and she's amazing.
Yeah.
She's doing great work.
Mr. Thurl.
Well, we're getting ready for our meeting on September 9th for the community service board, so that's about it. And I'd like to thank the golf course, or else we had a tournament and it went over well. That well.
It's all fair was amazing.
From my standpoint, the museum with the show and shine, you're involved in the background of that. Huge success. Neil is actually starting to release the reins a little bit to the kids, which is awesome. I'm still wanting to hold on a little bit, but that's fine.
Shelby did amazing.
Yeah, she did. I had an interesting interview with Drum Mayo. And so we'll do a little bit of a plug for the mine or the Humulite. So they've actually had an interview with Kyle set up through channels back and forth. And so yeah, that went very well for all parties involved. Other than that, it's just kind of the Matthew coming to town is he'll be here on Friday is his estimated time of arrival. And very anxious, I guess, to get his feet wet and really looking forward to dealing with him face to face instead of a text here and a message there. And so yeah, he's, as I've indicated, he is renting a house in town for the 3-month probationary period. He has full intentions, if everything goes as we all anticipate and hope, to move his family here and yeah, we can't hold him, but it's good. And that's what I've got.
So just to add on the Humulite, and I don't know everything, but I know talking with Mark and Dakota, there is someone, company that's very interested in the Humulite. And this is in discussion with special areas regarding their industrial park and setting up down there. I believe Mark said their investors for this group that's looking at it are meeting. Mark set up a meeting with them with the representatives from Westmet on September 12th, I think he said. So so optimistic that there's some big potential there. So that they'll continue to work through it.
Go ahead, Councilor.
Mark Danforth is also making himself available to the people, while he is still somewhat starting his new job as well. So he is providing a bit of a mentorship program for the young fellow, and I'm sure he'll be on that meeting.
September 12th, I believe so, yeah.
So, so I really thank Mark Dakota for all the work that he has done, bringing the right for Harvest Sky Economic Development and our town and special areas and Town and everything. And I wish him all the best. We did have a luncheon for him the other day as a retirement and a job for everything. Yeah. At the golf course, which the meal was very good, and wish him all the best. So, you know, he is going to be available if our new fellow is needing to. So I greatly appreciate the willingness to be making himself available.
Perfect. Okay, we'll adjourn the meeting at 11:06. Thank you, everyone.
We'll see you tonight.
Not yet.
For the roasted kidney.